The biggest mistake, the simple error that killed millions and we still use it. This is the story of the biggest serial killer in history. Not a monster, not a dictator, but a simple, fundamental mistake that lasted for centuries. It killed more people than all the wars of the 19th century combined. It was a mistake so obvious, so simple, that when one man finally figured it out, the entire scientific community laughed him out of the room. They destroyed his career, they drove him insane. All because he asked them to do one thing. Pretty mean, huh? We're talking about the time when doctors, the supposed saviors of humanity, refused to do one simple thing that could have saved millions of lives. And the worst part, the arrogance that caused that mistake, we still see it today. This is the story of Ignaz Semmelweis, the man who tried to tell the world to wash their damn hands, and how that simple, life-saving idea became the biggest mistake in medical history. The year is 1846, Vienna General Hospital. We're in the maternity ward. Now, giving birth was always risky, but in this hospital, it was a death sentence. There were 2 clinics. The first clinic was run by doctors and medical students. The second clinic was run by midwives. In the second clinic, the death rate from puerperal fever was about 3% sad, but expected for the time. But in the first clinic, the one run by the highly educated, arrogant doctors, the death rate was 10%, sometimes 20%. Women were literally begging to be sent to the second clinic or even giving birth on the street because it was safer than walking into the first clinic. The doctors had brilliant theories for why this was happening. They blamed bad air, the miasma theory. They blamed overcrowding. They blamed the priests giving the last rites. They even blamed the women themselves. Because, it's always the woman's fault. Imagine the scene. A woman would give birth, everything would seem fine, and then within 24 hours, she'd be burning up with fever. The doctors called it childbed fever. They saw it as an act of God, a natural part of the process. They were so certain of their own brilliance that they couldn't see the obvious. Enter Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis. He was obsessed with this difference. He studied the data, and the data screamed one thing: the doctors were the problem. Semmelweis noticed something crucial. The doctors and students in the first clinic spent their mornings doing autopsies on women who had died from the fever. Then they'd walk straight to the maternity ward to examine new mothers. The midwives, on the other hand, didn't touch the dead bodies. Then came the turning point. One of Semmelweis's colleagues accidentally cut himself with a scalpel during an autopsy, and he developed the exact same symptoms as the mothers. That's when it hit Semmelweis. The doctors were carrying cadaverous particles from the dead to the living. The solution? Wash your damn hands. He ordered the doctors to wash their hands with a chlorine solution before entering the ward. The result? The death rate dropped from 18% to 1%. It was a miracle. You'd think saving thousands of lives would earn him a medal, right? Oh no. This is where the biggest mistake happens, the arrogance of the establishment. The doctors were furious. Semmelweis was basically telling them that they were the ones killing their patients. They couldn't accept that their educated, sophisticated hands were dirty. They preferred complex intellectual theories of bad air over the simple, humiliating truth of, I forgot to wash my hands. The medical establishment rejected his findings. They refused to believe invisible particles could cause disease. They fired Semmelweis, they destroyed his data, and they went right back to their old ways. The death rates shot back up. For the next 20 years, thousands more women died unnecessarily because of the arrogance of men who refused to wash their hands. Semmelweis was labeled insane, a quack. He was forced to leave Vienna and move to Budapest, where he again implemented hand washing, and again the death rates dropped. But the medical community mocked him. They called him a fanatic, a madman obsessed with soap. And the cruel irony, he was eventually sent to an asylum where he died from an infection caused by wounds that weren't properly cleaned. The very thing he spent his life trying to prevent is what killed him. It took Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister decades later to prove that Semmelweis was right. The mistake was finally corrected, but the lesson remains. The biggest mistake wasn't the germ theory. It was the arrogance of certainty. The refusal to accept a simple truth because it came from outside established beliefs, and that arrogance, we still see it today. In politics, in science, in finance, the same blindness, the same pride. That's why this mistake is one of the most important in history. If you want to keep learning about the biggest mistakes that shaped our world, make sure you subscribe to Egg Talks. Hit the like button and tell me in the comments, what modern belief do you think is our next unwashed hands mistake? See you in the next video.